These tacos are the shit. Packed with flavor and mouth-watering texture, seasoned with traditional ingredients like cumin and Mexican oregano. And best of all, they're so easy to do, you'll want to eat them every day. Welcome back to Gringo Burritos, but today we're doing tacos Carnitas. I'm going to use a slow cooker, but stick around to the end and I'll show you an easy trick to make them more crispy and a bit more flavorful. But before we start, I'll preface this by saying, I know these aren't authentic Carnitas, and that's the point. This is Gringo Burritos, hence the Gringo. But unless you want to deal with a large pot of boiling pork lard in your home, Carnitas literally translates to little meats, but are typically made with pork, or more specifically, pork shoulder, also known as pork butt. And I have here a 3-pound boneless blade roast, which I'm going to cut into some large flat pieces so I can get a good sear on each of these before they go into the crock pot. You can use bone in too, but those are typically larger, and then you have to cut out the bone. But before we get them into the pan, we're going to lay them out on a drying rack so we can get some seasoning on them, and then give them a few minutes to come to room temperature. Nothing complex, just some salt and cumin. The rest of the seasoning will go in the crock pot. I'm going to give these about 30 minutes to relax, marinate, and come to room temperature before we apply the heat. Then we'll get these into the cast iron skillet, just a couple minutes on each side, and then evacuate them to the slow cooker. Now we can add the rest of the ingredients. As I mentioned earlier, this isn't a traditional recipe or method for making authentic carnitas, but I like to make them this way so they can be repurposed for other dishes. Stay with me and I'll show you another use for this slow roasted delicacy, but we're definitely going to use them for tacos. Okay, so oranges of course, onion, garlic, and some beef stock. I usually add bay leaves too, but I forgot this time. The beef stock isn't necessarily for flavor, more so just for some additional liquid to help the carnitas bake and break down. Pork shoulder is a tough cut of meat, which is why slow and low is one of the best ways to cook it. But you wouldn't want to use water, because water is blah. I'm going to cook these on low for about 8 hours. So I started these in the morning and I'll have dinner ready after work. We can fast forward through the 8 hours of course, but while we're doing that, I'm going to prepare the rest of the ingredients. Again, nothing crazy, just some onion, cilantro, and a bit of radish. I'm also going to use some homemade salsa, which you can find here, but I'll toss that in the description as well. I'm going to use the street style tortillas, which really just means they're very tiny. I like to give them a quick bath in some hot oil to give them a bit of texture, which also helps them keep their form. Oftentimes you'll find them steamed and doubled up so they can hold all the ingredients. But I like to maximize my taco filling to tortilla ratio. I'm sure there's an equation in there somewhere. Once the pork is done, they're ready to go into a taco as is. But because we didn't cook these traditionally, they don't have as much crispiness as they should have. No worries. I like to give them a quick smash and chop, and then toss them into a pan with a bit of oil and fry them for a couple minutes to add some texture. But if you've been waiting 8 hours for these delectable little meats, then feel free to skip this step and just go for it. No judgment. My go-to is some salsa, onion, cilantro, and then hit it with a bit of lime. Bam! Pow! Man, these are so good. I feel like breakdancing. So I also promised you some alternative options, and I didn't forget. I like to whip up a makeshift barbecue sauce with some brown sugar, tomato sauce, a bit of sriracha if you like some heat, and some liquid smoke for enhanced flavor. Bring this to a simmer and then add whatever leftover carnitas you have. Or if you don't want to go through the trouble of making the sauce, just use your favorite barbecue sauce. Toss this onto a bun. My favorite are these supersized Hawaiian rolls, but brioche is a good option too. And then top it all off with some coleslaw. I make a Latin fusion coleslaw that pairs well with carnitas, or you can just use regular coleslaw. Technically, you can make carnitas with chicken, and I suppose you could use beef too. No matter the meat you choose, just make sure it's a tougher cut that can stand up to the long cook time and transform into that melt in your mouth texture. I want to thank everyone for watching. If you found this video helpful or entertaining, push all the buttons for more delicious recipes and fun cooking tips. Thanks again everyone, and we'll see you next time.